that if we give into this, we'll have almost no services and nothing but taxes. That's the equation of the debt money system and what the New World Order does. And so their entire program is in trouble. Not just a month ago, Zbigniew Brzezinski, man, that's already a month ago, at the CFR saying for the first time the whole world is awake to world government and that we're in trouble. I mean, he's having to ring the alarm. Battle stations, we've sustained serious hits. The enemy is on us. Emergency, battle stations. I mean, we are in deep danger. We could be completely destroyed. We need the maximum effort from our New World Order operatives everywhere. I mean, they've now had to get to the point of being honest, and you watch the CFR people, they're all gulping, all, what? You mean I can't be an arrogant control freak? So they're more dangerous than ever, though. They want to start World War III with Iran. That's on the front burner from Bilderberg. But they're in trouble. They're not invincible. So right now, the destiny of the world, or the next phase of our history, is being decided. And I want to go to Bob Chapman, of the International Forecaster, one of the best analysts we've got, one of the best track records of prediction, because Gerald Celente says he believes we will collapse in the next 6 months. He says Europe's going to collapse, we're going to collapse the next 6. I haven't really seen Gerald be wrong, and that's probably the boldest statement I've ever heard out of him. So, man, I hope that's not the case, and I hope it isn't self-fulfilling either. Again, what's been put in motion is so much bigger than me or Gerald or Bob or Ron Paul that, you know, we would kid ourselves saying that a pronouncement like that could trigger it. Clearly, all that is in train, but I want to get Bob Chapman's view on what Celente said here 2 days ago, and how the media has shifted from saying it's a wonderful economy, everything's fine, to basically head for the hills, abandon ship, it's over, every man for himself. Bob Chapman.
Well, it's very, very difficult in these times to make predictions except for longer-term ones. And Gerald could very well be right. I think the underlying sovereign debt problem is really insurmountable. And the German Supreme Court just said in the challenge by the professors who have challenged this Supreme Court in Germany before that it's okay for Germany to help all these countries out, even though it violates the Constitution. They don't care. It's like our Supreme Court. They do what they want to do. And I just got a letter from a reporter in Germany and said, what do you think of that? I said, well, it's to be expected, and this really is part of the answer. And I think that about 63% of the people in the country don't want to be in the European Union. About 70% on average don't want the euro. And now you tell them that you're going to have to spend hundreds of billions of your tax dollars in order to pay off the bankers.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the bailouts go out to the bankers to bail them out, and then they loan our money back to us. And, of course, those are cooked numbers that 80% or more of England wants out of the euro because they were never allowed to have a vote on being brought into it, even though they're not officially in it. It's way over 63% of the Germans that are mad. We know those are even cooked polls. It's probably more like 85% from the numbers I've seen. But regardless, I mean, as Zbigniew Brzezinski said, the true nature of the world system is now becoming evident.
That's absolutely correct. So, yes, the sovereign debt problem is going to continue. There's 20 countries which are on the edge, and Iceland, for all intents and purposes, is under. And so that's an underlying deflationary factor. During the past 14 months, Europe, UK, United States have reduced their money and credit from a plus 18% on average down to about a minus 5.9%, at least in the United States. So they all did the same thing at the same time. So obviously it was coordinated. And except for bailing banks out, very little money has gone anywhere except for the stimulus plans that were put in place in many of the countries involved in Europe and England and the United States. Now, the effect of these stimulus plans is wearing off. Now, the big question is, and this comes back to what Gerald had to say in his projection, it all depends on which way they go. If they come back in and they say, oh, my goodness gracious, we must have another $800 billion in stimulus, and the Fed has to create another $1.5 trillion so that we can go sideways for another year, a year and a half. If they do that, then you're not going to get a collapse before the end of the year. You're going to get it in about a year, maybe a year and a half. If they don't do that, then I think that what will happen in the European Union is that one by one, these countries will fall away from the euro that are in trouble. We know who they are: Ireland, Italy, Portugal, Greece, and Spain. And they'll just drop out, and they'll go back to their own currencies. Now, we have two subscribers in Athens, and they're wealthy, extremely wealthy people, and the least that I hear from anyway. And they both say that they, independently, they don't know each other, that the drachma has already been printed. Now, how true that is, I don't know, but these people are substance.
Well, why are a lot of the British elites telling the Greeks to pull out and to default?
Can't answer that. I don't know what the thinking behind that is. Maybe they're reading my publication and listening to me on the radio and television over there along with you. But anyway.
But there's no way to bail it. I mean, there's no way to not default. I mean, technically, these countries can pay the trillions up to the bankers on the magic derivatives they were sold. But at the end of the day, still, that just devalues the euro and causes inflation. And so either way, it wrecks the economy. Why not pull out of it? And like Ron Paul has said, we don't really owe this money to the bankers. They're the crooks. Iceland said no. Then the books were looked at. But it turned out almost 90% of the money that the bankers wanted was money they owed from bets they had made. And so, I mean, now I see it in the German news, the French news, the British news. They're announcing, we're taking your Social Security, we're cutting it, we're cutting your pensions, we're raising your taxes. And of course Europe isn't going to go along with this. So these private bankers can get hundreds of billions of dollars in bonuses. I mean, this is really, and I think that's why Bilderberg is so scared, Bob, and I'm really worried about what Bilderberg's going to do. I think they're going to start World War III. I think before the collapse comes, they're going to launch World War III.
Well, I agree with you, and that's another factor. But going back, it all depends on which way they approach it. Ultimately, we know that no matter what they do, this whole thing's going into a great dark pit. In fact, I applied yesterday to be a pit helper, per the Bible. And it's supposed to be a joke. But anyway, oh, thank you for laughing.
No, it took me a minute to get it, Bob. It's like I'm always in. Stay there. Let's come back and let you talk about it. Okay, hypothetically, within Gerald Salente's mode, I should have asked Gerald, why do you think we're collapsing? I mean, he did say, he said, we're tapped out, we're bankrupt, everything's falling apart. Even new stimulus won't work. But let's try to look at the short-term collapse versus the long-term collapse, different scenarios with Bob Chapman.